for the win.
Layups aren't a particularly exciting signature shot unless Kyrie Irving is performing them. In the time of endless above-the-rim highlights,
behind-the-back move by Irving and score!
it all starts with his Illuminati handles. Irving is arguably the best ball handler on planet Earth. His endless array of dribbling tricks enables Irving to keep defenders off balance, change directions, and drive past almost any opponent in the league. Now you see him, now you don't. Once he gets a step on his defender, it's drive time, folks. Over the past 5 seasons, Irving has averaged a whopping 11.9 drives per game. He uses his dribble in traffic as well as anyone, en route to the basket where he can get off his shot in many different ways. But as pretty as it looks, it's fair to ask, the numbers aren't great, folks, and Nets fans shouldn't get too excited about Irving's overall efficiency near the basket. Simply put, his ability to create shots is much better than his ability to make shots. Over the past 5 seasons, Irving has hoisted up 2,362 shots in the paint. That's over 7 shots per game, which is a lot for any player, let alone a relatively small guard in a league full of giant defenders. But he's converted just 53.8% of those paint shots. That's not an elite number. Irving is one of 53 NBA players who have tried at least 2,000 shots in the paint over the past 5 seasons, but he ranks 38th out of those 53 in terms of field goal percentage. For comparison, LeBron James, Irving's old teammate, has converted 66.3% of his paint shots over the past 5 years. A lot more often. Check this out. Since entering the league in 2011-12, Kyrie Irving has 19 total dunks. In that same time period, LeBron has a cool 931 dunks. While it's true that dunks and layups can both result in incredible highlights, the efficiency gods much prefer dunks. Slam dunks aren't just the most effective shot types in the NBA, they're also almost completely absent from Kyrie Irving's arsenal, which hurts his overall efficiency numbers at the rim. Kyrie's relative inability to dunk the ball is a costly limitation. Regardless, few players are as fun to watch play the game as Irving is. Sure, he's more koozie than he is Giannis. Yes, he's smaller than most superstars, but between his incredible handles, his reliable long-range shooting, and his ability to score in traffic, he's still one of the most complete scoring guards in the NBA. He can take and make shots all over the floor and clearly isn't afraid to take big shots.
Irving, step back 3. Kyrie Irving buries it for the lead.
And that's Kyrie's spot.
Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good! Kyrie Irving from downtown! And the Cavaliers by 3.
Kevin Durant is one of the most complete scorers in history. The guy can do it all. He can hit threes, he can attack the rim, but his signature shot, his unstoppable mid-range jumper, is what makes him totally unique.
A dazzling display from Kevin Durant, 43 points.
And they've increasingly stayed away from mid-range jumpers.
Look at James Harden's shot locations. He basically only shoots at the rim or beyond the arc. Now, look at KD, who fills it up from everywhere. Conventional wisdom in the modern NBA is that mid-range shots are foolish and they are becoming a dying art, and the data tells us why. Since 2013-14, NBA mid-range jumpers have yielded just 0.82 points per shot. Not good at all, especially compared to three-pointers, which are at 1.08 points per shot over that same span. For virtually all NBA players, a three-pointer is just a better choice. However, Durant is different. He is so unusually efficient in the mid-range that the conventional wisdom simply does not apply to him.
Kevin Durant's homecoming night here in D.C. And Jan Mahinmi needs new breaks after that.
Since 2013-14, he is the only player to average better than a point per shot when taking a mid-range jumper. 99 players during that span have attempted at least 1,000 non-paint twos, and nobody has been efficient as Durant. And this season, after returning from his brutal Achilles injury, he is averaging 1.09 points per shot from the mid-range.
Durant the catch, splash.
It's been awesome to see Durant pick up right where he left off. He's still one of the world's best scorers, and these insane mid-range numbers this season just prove that. But it gets crazier. Durant is putting up these dominant numbers despite intense defensive attention. Over the same time span, 95% of his mid-range tries have been contested. According to Second Spectrum estimates, if an ordinary NBA player took the exact same mid-rangers that KD has taken since 2013, they would convert a measly 36% of them. But Durant has made nearly half of them. And folks, that's what makes Durant's mid-range game so darn special. It's unguardable. Why? KD's special blend of length, skill, and touch enabled him to create shots at will, while his uber-high release point prevents even the most athletic defenders in the league from being able to block his shots.
He's one of the best players that I've ever played against, that this league has ever seen. His ability to handle the ball, shoot the ball, make plays at his length, at his size, at his speed.
And it became the toughest matchup that I've had to deal with in my entire career outside of Tracy McGrady.
Don't forget, Durant plays like a wing, but he's basically a 7-footer with a 7'5" wingspan. He can be perfect as a defender. Put yourself in the right place with a textbook contest and you still won't bother his shot. That's why Durant doesn't have to rely on scheme or assists to get open looks. He can create an efficient look virtually anytime and any place he wants to. And that's a big reason why his teams are always great on offense, especially in late clock situations. When the clock is winding down, Durant's teams can just feed him the ball and let him go to work. Chances are KD will get them a great scoring chance.
Now the clock's winding down. They look for Durant. Under 5 seconds to go because he can create a shot and shoot over anyone.
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
I mean, he's Kevin Durant.
I promise we tried.
We didn't roll over.
Durant's mix of size, handles, and jumpers is unlike anything we've ever seen. When he starts attacking the rim, defenders have to protect the paint, but then Durant will just stop on a dime and teach you a classic mid-range lesson. But these mid-rangers are more than just regular season gimmicks. The mid-range becomes even more important in the playoffs. Over the course of a long series, opponents make adjustments to counteract schematic advantages, but there's no adjusting to a guy who can manufacture a bucket at will. Durant's ability to use the entire floor has helped him win 2 Finals MVPs as a member of the Warriors.
Durant, count it, and the foul. Beverly hit him, and Durant with a chance for a three-point play.
If you was a coach, what would you tell us to do? Thank you.
We tried everything. So we tried everything. We had several different coverages for KD, and
they didn't work.
Like sometimes you come across special people, and it doesn't matter what you send to them. It's no scheme. It's no defense. It's no nothing.
If KD's moves sometimes feel like they belong to a bygone era, well, maybe it's because they do. Check this one out. He backs Jeff Green down in the post before draining this gorgeous baseline fadeaway. Look familiar? It should. It's a move Michael Jordan used to call the windshield wiper, and MJ tortured defenders with it, especially later in his career. But just like MJ, Durant is no one-trick pony. He can also dribble straight into his mid-rangers. He's arguably the most gifted pull-up shooter in the world right now. And in case you think that's hyperbole, check out Steph Curry's reaction here. Curry knows about great shooting, and he's downright giddy as he watches his teammate get to a clean mid-range look.
Versus Durant with the mid-range jumper pure again.
There's a reason Durant won those final MVP awards. He was the best scorer in games that also included Curry and LeBron James.
Now Hood picks him up on the switch. Shot clock at 5. Kevin Durant way outside. Delivers!
Sure, the mid-range game has fallen out of favor in recent years, but Durant's postseason triumphs vault him into a prestigious group of mid-range shooters who have shown up in the league's biggest moments.
Durant on the pull-up, nails it.
Of the 5 best mid-range shooting seasons during that era, Durant personally owns 3 of them, and he's on pace for another one right now.
Here's Durant out top. Thompson switched on to him. It really doesn't matter sometimes.
There's a reason Durant has been in the conversation for the best player in the world. His handles and his size enable him to create shots at will. His unbelievable touch enables him to knock them down. And all of this is especially important within the context of a league that continues to trend toward three-point shooting and away from mid-range scoring. Because when games matter most, Durant has proven that those mid-rangers are still among the most valuable tools in the NBA.
A walking contradiction. He's become one of the best scorers in the modern NBA by mastering a shot that's gone out of style.
Shot clock down to 7. Brogdon watching Kawhi across the lane.
Want the ball in crunch time in an NBA playoff game? Well, you best be able to create your own shot, and many of the league's biggest moments have come in the mid-range, folks. Who can forget MJ's bucket to beat the Jazz?
Jordan, 20-footer, head of the key, good!
Or his incredible last-second jumper over Craig Elo.
Here's Michael at the foul line, a shot on Elo, good! The Bulls win!
What about Kobe's game winner against Phoenix?
Bryant for the win!
But these aren't just ancient history. Many of the biggest shots this decade came in the mid-range too. LeBron's clutch mid-ranger that clinched the 2013 NBA Finals. Chris Paul's pull-up jumper over Tim Duncan in 2015. And few players in the world can produce these kinds of shots as well as Kawhi. As easy as it looks for him now, Leonard wasn't born with a reliable jumper. In fact, the biggest knock against him coming out of San Diego State was that he couldn't shoot.
You can't just be the perfect basketball player. They're always going to criticize something about your game. So I think it's fair, and they could keep criticizing me bad or positive. I'm just going to keep working hard and just try to prove people wrong.
It took years of hard work in San Antonio to transform from the wing who couldn't shoot into the best two-way player in the world. In his first few years in the league, Leonard was pretty much a corner 3 specialist, but with each passing year, he continued to grow his offensive arsenal. Eventually, he added a pull-up jumper, as good as anybody not named Kevin Durant. These days, Leonard is one of the league's most complete scorers. He can finish at the rim and make threes, but it's his pull-up game that really sets him apart. Just look at all of that mid-range action.
Leonard stops, pops from 15, and hits, splashing one.
Leonard can dribble into traffic and still emerge with a decent look. Thanks to his athleticism and his feel for the game, he's developed into one of the world's best tough shot makers. The numbers are clear. Second Spectrum estimates that his constellation of 227 mid-range pull-ups last season should have resulted in a conversion rate of just 41%. But in reality, Leonard converted 49% of them. In other words, Leonard makes shots that other dudes miss, but so does. The thing that makes Kawhi different is that his shot-making skills harken back to the brilliance of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. The combination of the footwork, the pivots, the jab steps, the fadeaways. Not only are those shots gorgeous, but sadly they're an league-wide, players took 4,000 fewer mid-range pull-ups in 2018-19 than they did back in 2015-16. But the kinds of mid-range buckets that Leonard makes are the same kinds that rested at the center of Kobe and Jordan's repertoires. In a way, Leonard is preserving the aesthetic that those guys made famous. It's not the analytics that make Leonard's game so awesome, it's the connection to the past. But let's not pretend it's not efficient. Here's how Kawhi pulls off this move. his most common shot type. Nearly half the time he uses a pick to set up the pull-up, and that's when it's most effective. His effective field goal percentage, which takes into account the added value of three-pointers, jumps up to 52% coming off a screen. Another 36% of his pull-up jumpers come from ISOs, though his EFG drops to just 40% on those looks. And 81% of these pull-ups are contested. That's why it's so impressive. The perfect example, his iconic series winner against the Sixers in last year's playoffs. Kawhi catches the ball at the top of the arc, defended by Ben Simmons. He dribbles 4 times into the corner as Joel Embiid and his 7-foot frame come over for the double team. When Kawhi pulls up, fading to his right, he's gearing up for an incredibly tough shot from 21 feet out. Given his location, speed, and defender distance, the average NBA player wouldn't have a prayer of making this shot. But after a few bounces, he drilled it. It was a great play by a great superstar, throwing back to the past in his own effective way.
Chris Paul has made a career out of breaking down defenses and making the right plays at the perfect times. Simply put, he's one of the best point guards ever. But while everyone knows he is one of the smartest playmakers of the era, he's also an incredible shooter. And his signature shot, the elbow jumper, is an underrated masterpiece.
Dancing with the basketball just to throw him off balance a little bit.
In the mid-range. Such a smooth-looking shot.
It all starts with the play Paul was born to execute. The pick and roll, aka the bread and butter play of the modern NBA. Paul is a pick and roll maestro, and as soon as a teammate sets a ball screen for him, he turns into one of the most dangerous weapons in the NBA. Since the league launched its player tracking system back in 2013-14, nobody has been involved in more pick and roll actions than Chris Paul, who's been the ball handler in over 20,000 such actions in that time frame. 20,000! Even though he's played for several teams and coaches in that period, all of CP3's coaches have agreed to let him do his thing in the pick and roll. That's why he's run a pick and roll in over half of the possessions he's been on the court over the last 7 seasons. There are 2 main reasons why Paul is a savant in the pick and roll game. First, he's a devastatingly great passer. He's the active leader in assists, with nearly 10,000 for a reason. Just look at this.
Nice pass, beautifully done, Chris Paul.
Watch this lob, Chris Paul. Nobody does it any better.
That's just not fair.
But Paul's incredible mid-range scoring is a second huge reason why he's such a good pick-and-roll player. He loves using a screen and snaking his way into an open look between his chasing defender and a backpedaling big. His shot chart shows that he's pretty much automatic near the elbows. Look at all that mid-range action.
So Paul takes that shot in the mid-range. He knew it was going in.
Given his elite passing and shooting, defenders are left with no good choices, and their reluctance to leave an open big rolling to the basket has freed Paul to launch over 5,000 shots out of pick and roll actions in the last 7 seasons.
He eviscerated the modern defensive switching.
Yes.
Because he just killed them with the mid-range.
CP3 is equally dangerous as an isolation scorer at those elbows. Check out this classic example from back in February of 2015 when CP3 was still on the Clippers and they were hosting the defending world champs. With the Clippers in possession and clinging to a late game 1-point lead, LA needs to both kill time and produce points. The point guard calmly dribbles out near half court, communicating to decline a screen from Lob City partner DeAndre Jordan. Then, with the shot clock winding down, Paul dribbles towards his happy spot, the right elbow. Everyone in the gym, including his defender Manu Ginobili, knows he's going to shoot. As Paul arrives at the elbow, Ginobili can't be any tighter, but that's not a problem. Paul nudges the Argentine away with his left forearm and slips the ball back behind with his right hand. And just like that, he has all the space he needs to knock down one of the most reliable 16-foot jumpers in the league and ice the game.
Here's Paul. Yes! 8 seconds remaining.
Just a few months later, Paul was once again facing those Spurs, this time in the 7th game of a brutal first-round series. Once again, the Clippers needed a bucket, and once again, Paul dribbled his way into a tough mid-ranger and sank the series clincher over the outstretched hands of Tim Duncan, sending the defending champions home.
And the Clippers have ripped the heart out of the Spurs.
Paul has been terrorizing opponents with unassisted mid-rangers from these key areas for years. Check out these two stats. Over the past 7 seasons, he leads all NBA scorers in this zone with 1,021 unassisted buckets here. That's nice, but here's where it gets crazy. Out of 79 NBA players that have tried at least 500 unassisted shots from this zone in that same time frame, Chris has also posted the best accuracy numbers, hitting an astounding 49.5% of such shots in this area. That's better than Durant, better than Curry, better than Dirk. In other words, not only is CP3 the most prolific unassisted scorer in this area, he's also the most accurate. When people think of the best shooters of the last decade, of course they're quick to point out Durant, Curry, Nash, and Dirk. But it's time to add Chris Paul to that list, folks. And if he's been left off in the past, he knows it's partially because of a lack of style.
A lot of times you're not going to see what I do show up on SportsCenter. They don't want to see no floaters. They don't want to see no mid-range pull-ups, none of that stuff. They want to see some dunks and some threes and all that stuff like that. And, you know, my dad taught me when I was younger, you know, do your job. You know, whether they appreciate it or not, do your job.
Paul has done his job of creating and knocking down jumpers as well as anybody. And when you consider the fact that the dude is just 6'1", CP3 stats become even more astounding. At 35 years old, Chris Paul has already built a Hall of Fame resume, but he's not done yet. And while he's never been to the NBA Finals, just ask Tim Duncan and the 2014-15 Spurs. Nobody wants to see him in a playoff series.
Baptized.